I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth. Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of the most haunted city on earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And we are back with Michael Molina. You might recognize him in a different hat.
Yes, hola, it's me again. Now I have this legendary hat.
Oh.
It's sexy.
It is. Gorin Bros. Yes.
Yeah, I love the little long neck monster, you know?
You mean Nessie?
Yes.
Yes. The Long Ness Monster.
The Long Ness Monster.
Not Loch Ness.
Long neck.
Long neck.
He's got a long neck.
Yes.
Well, yes, we got it. We're right there with you.
But we are going to be talking about sleep paralysis because, you know, Michael is here. So we were like, might as well just have you talk about it while you're here. So
I'm back.
Yes.
I'm back.
So hopefully you liked him the first time.
I hope you did. And if you didn't, I will cry.
Don't tell him.
Yeah, don't tell me. Just tell me I'm pretty and that you love my hat.
Yes.
Just do that and that's it.
Absolutely. So, Michael, tell us about your trauma.
It all started the day I was born. What would you like to know?
Okay, so kind of run us through what happens with your particular sleep paralysis.
All right. I feel like it has evolved, and I don't really know how to explain it without going into detail. So when I was younger, I probably started experiencing this when I was 6, maybe 5 or 6, and I remember this one specific time where so I was sleeping on my bed. It was the middle of the afternoon, and I remember I was playing The Lion King. I was watching The Lion King on TV, and I remember I was watching it. I'm guessing I fell asleep because I was watching it. One moment I was watching it from my bed, and the next moment I was watching it from the ceiling. Oh. And I remember specifically that I moved and I saw myself laying on my bed from the ceiling, looking down at myself moving. But then I saw myself from the bed. I looked up and I saw myself in the ceiling. So it's like a double thing. Right. It was so weird. And I know it sounds crazy, but it was right. Yeah. But it was insane. It was so intense. It was like this out of body experience thing, which is why Insidious captures that so well. And that happened, and it evolved from that to what I now call I'm just in bed, one point of view kind of thing. I just see myself from my body. There's been times where I can actually realize that I'm outside my body and see myself from outside of my body, but usually I'm just in bed and there is just things around me, like all these shadow things, all these weird things going on. So it has evolved with time.
Sure.
So, yeah, I know it's a lot. But.
No. I mean, honestly, we are not the people to say your experience.
We're never going to be like, yeah, sure.
That's far-fetched.
But what's interesting is there's an added element to your sleep paralysis that is not generally common, which is the astral projection concept, which kind of focuses closely, not to freak you out or anything, with demonic possession. Oh. Where's JT? JT!
Yes.
Demon!
I'm a demon!
No,
yes.
It's just...
Where?
It's Michael.
It's me. I'm the gay demon, though.
The construct and concept of astral projection leaving your body susceptible for demonic assault is a common belief. Is like if you leave the shell, then it's like a car with the keys in,
right?
You know, and so spirits are going to come by and be like, "Oh, nice car," and jump in and try to take it for a ride. So that's a really interesting notion of you being able to see your body, because that is a common thing with people who die, have near-death experiences. That very specific thing, being on the ceiling looking down. You hear that a lot when people are going through near-death experiences. They talk about, being over like the surgery table or being over these things. So, I'm really fascinated by the fact that was an introduction to that sleep paralysis world was an out-of-body experience.
Yes.
So. Sorry. I was going to say, so what is also interesting is that you are technically a twin. And so, twins are naturally usually kind of at a heightened different state. When you have that connection from the womb with a second human being, a lot of times you are more open and more susceptible to, paranormal activity. So I find it interesting that you have that astral projection type of ability as well. But
it's bizarre that you bring up, my twin, because for people who don't know, so I am a twin, but my brother did pass away, but it was only like 20 days after birth because we were both premature babies. That being said, I've always wondered what it will feel like to have this connection with someone. I feel like twins are connected somehow.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I've never thought about it that way, to be honest.
That also harkens into a construct and concept that in the spirit realm, that connection is not severed. And so the you that was on the ceiling may not have been you. You may have been switching perception between the twin that is spiritually following you around. And thereby, in this state, you are able to switch,
Oh, that's cool.
That would be cool. Cool superpower.
A strange, peculiar superpower, but also raises the question of who's really sitting at the table with us.
Ooh.
It said Michael or Eric. That was his name. Oh. So
Eric,
if you're here.
Well, and
floating.
Right.
And would Eric even know is a wider question, because again, being a storyteller and a writer, it's like, well, this is an interesting one. I like it. Yes. Because then it could be that sometimes Eric is driving the car and sometimes...
That's so interesting.
And then now we have an interesting whole series of questions. But I do like the connotation, and we had discussed this a little. We just recently had a live podcast with some Patreon members, but we discussed the idea of sleep as being the field between living and death. You're giving up a lot of the solidity of the real world in dream, and a lot of the things that we accept as truth and reality. And now you're in the dream realm, where on the other side of the dream realm is death. Right. So spirits can be infiltrating and moving through. And so when you're suffering from sleep paralysis, you are looking basically straight through the veil. You're asleep but awake. You're dreaming but awake. And I think one of the questions that came up was, do you have any iconic things in your visions? Like, do you see something regularly, the same thing, or is it amalgam of different and shifting things?
Usually it's just shadow, what I like to call shadow people.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
It's a bunch of shapes and shadows, and more than anything, it is voices, like deep, like demonic, creepy.
Would you
voices.
say they're the same voices?
No, it's multiple
voices.
It's a lot of voices, and they all kind of like merge together, and I can hear them, and then I'm like, okay, I'm in the little insidious world right now. I need to snap out of it. Okay, what can I do? But I cannot move. And there's instances where I do, astral project, and I do see myself struggling to get up. The times that I have come close to myself, I can't really touch and like reach out to me or like touch me because there's like shadow things blocking me from, I guess, going back into my body. Yeah. So whenever I wake up from this, it has to be the real me who wakes up. It's never the opposite way. It's never the abstract me waking the real me up, it's usually I have to wake up in order to come back in.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, I just get lost and everything goes dark, and it's this whole thing where, and the weirdest thing is, I remember this because it's happened a few times, but I feel one of the very first times that it happened, I had the TV on, and I know when it's gonna happen. Like before I go to sleep, I have a feeling that it's gonna happen. And I was watching Chelsea Lately that night because I love Chelsea Lately, and I fell asleep while watching it, and then I could hear it from my sleeping body, so my real self. My eyes were closed, and I could hear Chelsea talking. But then from my abstract self, I was watching the TV, and I could see it from my abstract self and hear it from my sleeping self.
Wow. Interesting.
It's so weird.
That is super weird.
Right. And I remember this happened in high school, and my best friend at the time, she was like, you might need some meds.
You're crazy.
And she's not my best friend anymore for a lot of reasons. Yeah. Yeah, she was like, do you think this is some kind of, mental disorder or something like that? Mm-hmm. Just because it was so bizarre. I'm like, no, I've experienced this. And then I remember maybe a year later or so, Insidious came out, and everything just clicked. I'm like, okay, there's more people like me out there. Like, this is not just me going insane.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting because for those of you who haven't seen Insidious, spoilers, it is about when you're young, having the ability to explore, and they called it the further.
Yeah.
Yes.
To explore basically the realm of the veil, going into the realm of whatever's left behind, and being able to just travel and view and see and watch from this extended version, which is more of that astral projection, more of that out-of-body experience things, and of course, leaving your body very vulnerable to assault and attack, and it becomes a beacon, a body without someone at the steering wheel, that it
lights up.
It lights up. It's a bright light in the dark, and these shadow figures, these multiple voices, all of that are the parasites, the parasitics, the spirits that seek life above all other things. They want to be alive again, and the easiest way to do that is to keep the driver from the car, to get in and to maintain control. So it's fascinating because we are now out of sleep paralysis a good deal. While I think you were having all of the classic notions of sleep paralysis, we are talking about
astral
projection. Sure. And we use the word demon a lot, but without the religious connotations, just these dark figures that are drawn specifically to cracks in our reality, ways in, and a person who can do this, is a doorway. Because in our last podcast, you had mentioned that Insidious was very much like a reflection of what you go through.
Yes.
And in my mind, I was like, that's interesting, because in my mind, I'm like, is sleep paralysis the thing that goes on in that movie? And it's like, well, no, not exactly. But you tend to now have the first person account, the inside the body, frozen in bed account, which I wonder if that's not because as you grow older, you kind of recognize the threat.
Yes.
It could be. I think last time I had it was probably like 2, maybe 3 months ago. And it's weird because the older I get, the less I have them.
Sure.
Because when I was younger, I'll have them all the time. It will be almost a nightly thing, especially when I was like 5, 6. It will happen a lot. And
the ominous rain now coming.
God, oh my
Michael,
God.
Did you pay for this?
I did.
Oh, okay.
I love this.
It's just thunderously raining now.
Yes, I love this. It's adding to the dramatics of, my out-of-body experiences and going into the realm, into the further.
Into the further, yes.
Into the further.
But it's interesting that you say it's gotten less and less, because children are the most susceptible to astral projection. Children are often the most susceptible to most paranormal things, just because they're so curious. They're so like open to any kind of concept. If you tell them like, yeah, at night you can fly outside your body, they're like, absolutely, I can do that. Like, there's no limits to children.
Right.
And so, but it does scar kids when you go into something that's so scary as astral projecting, because yes, there are some very interesting things that can happen in the plane. But like from other people who have talked about, astral projection, most of them explain it the same way you're saying, where it's very dark and it's just these shadowy creatures that are there, and it's frightening, and there's such dark patches. And especially when you were a child, children are the brightest light of all of them. So of course they're going to want to get to you out of everybody.
Right.
Did you ever wake up from those like episodes with like bruises or scratches on you? Because that's...
Not that I know of. Again, I don't think I've ever been touched by any of the shadowy creatures. It's more like they want to come near me, but somehow I don't know if it's the real self or the outer self, but somehow I keep them away.
Sure.
And then I snap out of it because I know I'm in it. And one thing I've noticed is when I am in it, time changes. It feels like an eternity when I'm there. And it's only been 5-10 minutes in real time. But there, it just feels so long, and everything is so gray and just creepy. Overall, it's just creepy. There are all these things on you. And part of me wants to explore, right?
Sure.
Part of me is like, I wonder if I can just go down the hallway, if I can go to the kitchen or do this or do that. And I never have. And it's
smart.
Yeah, probably a good idea.
Right. I mean, when I was younger, it was obviously out of fear. I'm like, I don't want to go down there. I want to wake up. Let's wake up. But now as an adult, it's 100% out of fear too, but it's more that I now recognize that I am there and that I don't belong there. And I'm like, I need to get out of here. I don't want to be here. I don't want to explore. I need to wake up. So I make the noises. Right. I make the noises and I wake up somehow.
Well, that's amazing to connect to the physical nature of hearing. Because that's a physical action.
Right.
People, a lot of times we get confused when we talk about spirits watching us and spirits, hearing us, or even spirits speaking, because they don't have ears, they don't have eyes, and they don't have vocal cords. So there is a different thing going on in their perception than what we are used to thinking of. So like you're calling upon a physical thing. When you make noise, there's a little drum in your ear beating out the vibrations so that you're going through that natural anchor of a physical body. Here's a question: have you ever slept? Have you ever sleepwalk? Is that right? Sleepwalking.
Sleepwalking.
Do you
no.
ever sleepwalk?
I never have.
Really?
That's great
I
because
never have.
I've always termed sleepwalking as the other side of sleep paralysis. Because sleep paralysis is basically waking up and not being able to move. Sleepwalking is being able to move without waking up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm a sleepwalker, so that freaks me out.
Well, that's just it. Because being asleep, and not to be overly dramatic, but I think sleepwalking is closely linked to possession. Because it is a period of time when you are not in control. And so what is, and people are like, oh, well, it's a subconscious, so it's this, it's that. It's like, yeah, but when you're around enough of supernatural events, paranormal activity, you start to realize that chief and, overriding desire to be a part of the material world of spirits, especially spirits that were never a part of the material world, demons or creatures that have never been human, their desire to experience this world is so overwhelming that when we're asleep, like we said, we're exploring a dream world. We're having these many out-of-body experiences because we don't bring our consciousness with us. If you start moving around, if you walk around, if you find yourself walking around. Because I had a series of terrible sleepwalking bouts in high school, and I had acquired an old, gnarly book that I was reading as much as I could, but it was like crazy translations, and it was a demonology book. And during the time that I had that book, I would find myself in the woods. I'd wake up in the woods. Wow. I mean, my house was in the woods, so it wasn't like I took a huge journey. It was like out into my yard and we had a pool, which at some point I was afraid I was going to walk into that pool. But that notion of something is making me sleepwalk, and it's like I deemed it, I'm having bad dreams based on this book, so I got rid of the book. And the moment the book was no longer in my house, I never sleepwalk again. Wow. And I was like, So whenever I talk to sleepwalkers, I always like, so tell me, how's your paranormal life? How do you approach paranormal activity?
See, it's funny because I've only sleepwalked for like a handful of times in my life, but I always sleepwalk with my eyes open, which is even freakier.
Yeah.
Because the first time I ever was sleepwalking, I was probably like 11 or 12 years old, and my sister was younger, obviously, and so she sometimes liked to sleep on the little couch that was in my parents' bedroom. And so my mom woke up one night because she heard something moving in her room, and she sees me walking over to the couch and staring at my sister with my eyes wide open, and she was like, Madison, hello? She's like, what are you doing? And then I go to sit on my sister, and then I look back at her, and then she goes, no, you can't, like, get off, get up. And I was like, that. And then I got back up, and then I walked back to my room, which was so bizarre.
Oh, that is super bizarre.
And then I had a sleepwalking incident recently. It wasn't that bad. It was just bizarre because, again, I sleptwalk with my eyes open, but I brought, this was in our house now, which we did talk about this briefly, where I've been having weird instances in my house in general. But I brought my dog with me, and I woke up in the morning on our couch with my dog. Oh. And I'm like, this is so strange.
Yeah.
Yeah. Been having weird instances with dreams recently. I told the Parajunkies that were on our live stream how I had a dream recently where, and this is after I did a little mini investigation in our house, and I found some like very odd evidence where I believe that like somebody was murdered in the unit upstairs in the attic area.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So our house is very haunted. Michael's staying with us, so like he's like,
congratulations.
Fun. So what I saw last night was right.
I'm like, if you did, you probably saw something.
On your way to sleep tonight, go up into the attic.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And so I had this dream a couple weeks ago where basically I was in an attic that I didn't recognize, but I felt like something was there. And so I have a tendency to be curious. So I called out to whatever was there. I was like, hey, if something's here, make yourself known. And I just hear crying woman, like repeating over and over and over again. And then I feel like physically in my body, something grab my ankle. And in the dream, it is dragging me around this attic area. And then when I wake up, because I was like, okay, get out of that, and I still feel that hand on my ankle, like it was grabbing my leg.
Wow.
So weird things have been happening. I think just this house in general has really unlocked a new paranormal sense of mine.
Sure.
Which, happens. But the sleepwalking thing has always confused me in my...
Well, yeah, and I'm not saying that sleepwalking is inherently supernatural. I'm not suggesting that, but I have noted that when we talk about dreams and we talk about being able to communicate in dreams, the susceptibility of a human being while asleep to paranormal assault, pretty high.
Yeah.
Because you're already in a brain pattern that accepts a wider reality than the one we live in. So, that's pretty inviting for a ghost and a spirit.
Yeah.
I've never experienced sleepwalking.
Yeah.
The closest thing, for those of you who don't know, on the previous episode, I mentioned how in order for me to get out of my sleep paralysis, I have to make these noises for me to wake up. And that will be the closest thing I have ever experienced to sleepwalking in a way, because I'm making noise while sleeping, so it's sleep noises, I guess.
Yeah.
But funnily enough, my grandmother, my abuela, she sleepwalks.
Oh.
A lot.
Interesting.
A lot. And she would not only sleepwalk, she will like physically assault you when she was sleeping. She will walk with her eyes open. She will slap you. She slapped me a couple of times. Sometimes I wonder, were you really sleeping though? No, but really, this one specific time, oh my God, I'll never forget it. She, so back in Venezuela, I shared my room with my grandmother. So I would sleep with her on the same bed. And she woke up screaming, and I'm just like, okay, she's screaming again. Moving on. But then she'd crawl from one side of the bed to the other. So she's in this end, and I'm here. She crawled to this end of the bed, to the corner, and she was just staring at me. And I remember we had an AC on the wall, and the light of the AC was hitting her in the face, because everything else was pitch black except that one little light. And her eyes were hazel. They are hazel. She's alive. Hola, abuela. Her eyes are hazel, and she literally looked like the Exorcist. It was so creepy. It was like, what is she doing? This one time, though, she woke up because she was being robbed, right? And she started running all over the house. Like, she ran, came back in the room, and started hitting and punching the closet door. Because he was taking her purse away from her.
Abuela, no.
And the closet door, it literally snapped, and it fell on her foot, on her big toe, and it broke her toe. And she was screaming and crying, right? Because I'm guessing that woke her up.
Sure.
Right. But I didn't believe her. I thought she was having a moment. And I'm like, oh my God, abuela, go to sleep. Like, déjame dormir. Like, please go to sleep. And she's crying and crying. And I'm like, she's having a moment. Like, and I remember my aunt comes from the other room. She comes into the room and she's like, what's going on? Like, is she okay? And I'm like, she's fine. She's fine. She's literally just having a moment. Like, she's just
beat up the
she's just sleepwalking.
Yeah.
And then the following day, we had to take her to the hospital.
Oh, poor thing.
Because her toe broke. So it's funny to me how she sleepwalks, but then I'm able to do this astral projection thing. Sure. So I am guessing.
Oh, it's generational.
Generational thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's fascinating.
Which I never really thought of until now. I'm like, interesting.
Yeah. Things like that get passed down through family members all the time. Usually if somebody has some type of abilities in the family, somebody else has abilities and they're just not saying it. So it's like, and it's especially with grandmothers, I find. Like the matriarch of the family, usually, they got something going on. It's just,
yeah,
it's
absolutely
super common. But poor abuela, she I feel so sorry for her.
She's fine. She's doing
my
great.
God.
She's doing great.
He's like, don't worry about her.
She's fine. That was like 20 years ago.
Okay. Yeah.
She's fine now.
She beat the closet door.
That
closet door
stole her purse.
Don't steal her purse, because she will take you out.
At the cost of her own toe, she will take you down.
Yeah. At the end of the day, she's Latina, and you don't mess with a Latina. So,
I mean, that's fascinating too. The concept of how determined people's sleepwalking can become. And people do think oftentimes that sleepwalkers are walking with their eyes closed. Mostly they're open-eyed, because there's enough notion in a sleepwalker's ability to move around to know, I need to see.
Yeah.
You're just not accessing that conscious brain. And I've seen sleepwalkers who inhabit entirely different personas when they are sleepwalking, and that is really bizarre, because it's like, where is that coming from? How are you doing that? Is this the subconscious, manifestation, or is there something else in charge there? Because that's very odd. Because it's one thing to have, like, thinking that someone stole your purse and chasing them through the house. It's another thing if you show up and you're, a sailor, and it's like, we're going down, raise the sails, move. You're like, what is happening?
What is going on?
Oh, they have a completely different name.
Or answer to different names, or announce themselves.
In
different ways. Yeah.
On a totally different side note to that, you should watch The Visit.
The Visit.
Have you seen that?
No.
Oh my gosh, it's all about like it's creepy.
It's creepy, super creepy.
It's kind of got that same vibe of like this grandma that like does really weird things at night, and it's super horrifying. I think you might enjoy it.
I'll definitely enjoy it.
you should watch it because when you're saying that, it really reminded me of that movie, because it's like these two kids that come to stay with their grandparents and whatnot, but grandma goes crazy. So. Definitely fun. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a cheery holiday movie.
Yes,
gather around. Yeah.
Gather around and watch The Visit. It's a nice, wholesome family movie. It's always interesting to hear like how it can be passed down, these like kind of gifts of sort. Although astral projection is questionable if it's a gift, for some people.
Well, it's a gift if you can do it on command. It's not a gift if you're just tossed out of your body at random.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Just like yeeted out, and so it's
right.
like.
and sometimes I wish that I could just do it on command.
Sure.
But I'm glad that now I'm, I guess, strong enough to snap out of there.
Yeah, I
willingly.
think that's amazing.
Yes.
Right.
Because a lot of people never get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because it is scary. It's not a nice place to be in, and I've learned my little tricks to get out of there. Mm-hmm. So.
Well, and it's interesting to have you talk about it too, because astral projection in like the past 5 years has been so romanticized. Like people are like, oh, it's so interesting to like have these out of body experiences. This is how you learn to astral project. This is how you do this. This is how you do this. And the voices of the people who have actually done it, like, and have seen how scary it can be in the plane, they try to be like, no, you don't want to do that.
And one of the interesting things though is, because there's a path to enlightenment that at a certain stage you're astral projecting at will and you're doing these things, but the journey itself involves fortifying yourself, and it takes a lifetime of discipline and of practice and of peaceful notion. So and of course there are shortcuts. Of course there are ways to put yourself into that state, but when you hear the stories of people who have made that ascension through meditation, and they do the out of body experience, it's romanticized, but it is through a process of reinforcing what you're going to do when you're there, which is find peace, which is, and so they always talk about being in a place of light, and it's like, that's great, but if you just jump out of your body, you're probably going to be in the swamp. You're probably going to be right there in the dark with the shadows, because that's where we exist. We are trudging along. We are not monks. We're not living. We're not living on top of mountains. Dedicating our life to peaceful thoughts. We are inundated with all kinds of things, and we are very tasty morsels to the spirits that are all around us.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's so many parasitic spirits, I should say, that are out there just looking for opportunity. And it's like, if you don't know what you're doing, it's dangerous. And that's what the problem is because the voices of those who are like, hey, don't do that. Like, if you don't know what you're doing, like, don't like just immediately decide like one night, I'm like, I'm going to astral project. It's like, don't do that. And so,
like, have you ever heard of people who've had adverse effects to Ambien?
Yes.
So Ambien is a fascinating pill because apparently there are conditions in which when you take Ambien, if you don't go to sleep, you still enter the dream state. And it causes horrible. I have a friend who literally like tried to drank every alcohol in the house out of the bar, all of it. He took every pill in the cabinets. He tried to freebase an aloe plant, all while on Ambien, and he went blind. Like he was like in the hospital blind. He could not see. They weren't sure he would have brain function again. They were really concerned for him. And this was all as a side effect of the fact that he was somehow in a dream state. And that dream state made him want to abuse alcohol and drugs. And I was like, that is the most outlandish. But then I think about when you hear side effects and they're like, increased gambling. Increased gambling is a side effect of taking a medication. And they're like, self-destructive behaviors, sleep driving. I'm like,
oh, yeah.
What? And it's like, yeah, you can take Ambien and then end up in a car. Driving somewhere. Yeah. I'm like, I'm really wary of this. How's that? So they're like, be sure if you're going to take this medication that you are on your way to bed, that you are going to be asleep before the drug really, really, does its work. I'm like, that's fascinating.
That is horrifying.
But it does speak to this concept of our bodies having kind of a puppety effect.
Yes.
Once we've entered the dream state, any number of things can take charge. And even if it's just some corridor in our brain that takes charge, that was a corridor that was closed off to the waking world for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not fun to be there. You feel very vulnerable. I don't know how to explain it. It's a different kind of vulnerability. It's not like, how people say, oh, when you're naked in front of others, that's the most vulnerable you'll be or something like that. But that's not it's like a deeper, I don't know.
Well, your soul is exposed, essentially.
Right. I don't know how to explain it. And especially when you have all these things looking at you, wanting you in a way, but never truly coming close enough to you to do any harm, but they're there. And I feel like that makes it even.
It must be that
worse.
instinctual sensation of being prey. There's an instinctual sensation to something hunting you or something, and we don't really get to feel that as humans because we are rarely in that. And even when predatory people are after us, we still have a lot of our logic to help us, guide us. But to be in full notion, like if you've ever been in front of a really scary, like wild animal, like a big dog or a big cat, and you're like suddenly realizing, well, there's nothing. There's no talking my way out of this. There's no, there is no, because even being naked in front of a crowd, you can conceivably talk your way but grizzly bear comes around the corner. What piece of you do you offer the grizzly bear to not eat you?
Right. And it's also, I feel like it also has to do with the unknown.
Yes.
I'm in this other realm in a way that I don't know what it's made out of. I know nothing. I don't know my surroundings. I don't know anything. And that adds to the whole idea of like, I don't belong here. And that's why I need to get out of there. It's like, wake up.
Yeah. Pig snorts.
There you go. Brilliant.
Just do pig snorts.
And not everybody's going to come up with that answer.
That is true. Everybody kind of has their own ways of getting out of things like that, is what I've seen or heard. Everybody has like whatever makes you feel like the most in control of yourself. So for you, you're like, okay, I know like noise is going to wake me up. So, snort it out.
Click or snort.
Yes. But then there's other people that are like, my conviction comes through my faith. So it's like,
although if they're calling out, they are also engaging that physical, if they're calling out verbally, they can hear it and acknowledge the difference between that dream state of helplessness and trapped to the physical state of I'm in a physical place. I have, I can kickstart the engine, because a lot of people will explain it. When you go to sleep, there's a piece of your brain that gets flicked off so that you don't move around in your sleep, acting out your dreams. There's times when you wake up and that switch doesn't get turned back on, so your body is still, technically asleep, still knocked out. And that's the opposite of sleepwalking. That switch doesn't get turned, doesn't get flicked off, and so you have the ability to move and interact as if you are awake, but you're dreaming. So, being able to wake yourself up, anything that would wake yourself up. Right. And that's the tricky thing of sleepwalking, I think, is because in your dream state, as you're moving around, you are adapting to the stimulus that's coming at you. Luckily, when you're in sleep paralysis, the stimulus is so, because you can't move, is so fixated that you can, make a noise or try to shake yourself out of it.
And there's been a lot of studies done on people who, experience sleep paralysis. They call them sleep studies, and they put all these little, I don't know, how do you call those?
They're like,
yes, they put it all over your body and all over your head, and they monitor everything. And everyone has a different experience, but they have noticed that there is a specific part of the brain that lights up when they're in this state, in this realm, and they can't really explain it. As of now, there's no explanation for this.
Wow. The brain is so mysterious.
Right. A lot of, doctors and scientists, what they say is, technically you're in the state of, you are dreaming but not fully asleep, so you are still a little bit awake, and that's why you're hallucinating and you're seeing all these things in front of you. But that's the only thing they say.
That's all they have to offer, right?
There is nothing else. That it's like everyone experiences this differently, but at the end of the day, they either cannot move at all and they see things, or they astral project like I do. It's this whole weird phenomenon that I dived into because I never knew that was a thing. I thought that I was the only one. Yeah. I thought if I told people this, they're going to think I'm crazy. So, it's great.
It is. It sounds like a grand old time, I'm sure.
It's great. It's fantastic. Try
Everybody should try it. Yeah.
Call me and try it.
Yeah. Now I'm like going to do some deep diving into sleepwalking and how it affects paranormal, because I don't know why. I've never even thought of that.
By that. Yeah. And, I don't know that people make these direct, because when things happen in commonplace enough that we determine it as not being special. I go on about this a lot with childbirth. We've kind of just decided that it's not a miracle. It's medical, it's biological. It's a miracle. That's a human being. It came out of nothing. That human being was not here, 9 months ago. Did not exist at all. So, the fact that we can water down wonder. Sleepwalking is fascinating when you think about it. It is you not in control, moving about, doing things, acting out scenarios, and having these weird physical adventures. That's your body on the line there.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's no real telling how many deaths are attributable to sleepwalking, because who knows? Somebody could just walk out on their balcony, over the balcony, and people would think they fell by accident or that they killed themselves. Could have been a sleepwalking incident. Rolling down the stairs, sleep driving now, a thing to be worried about.
That is true. Yeah, and make sure you don't do what I did, like grab your dog. Look, Argyle, though.
Although if Argyle was sweet about it,
I mean, she stayed with me. I was like, you're the real one. You're a homie, apparently. So it's like, because she didn't leave. She's like, oh, Mom's crazy. It's okay. But don't take your dog with you when you sleepwalking. So
you walk the dog
JT
right into traffic.
killed me when I told him, because he woke up obviously and I wasn't there, and he was like, "Why are you out here? And why do you have Argyle?" And I'm like, "Oh, I must have sleptwalk." And he's like, "You did what with my dog? You did what?" Because that is his baby, if y'all haven't realized right now. He didn't care that I was sleepwalking. He was just mad that she was with me for the journey. And so,
well, and if the dog were in any peril, I'm sure the dog would have made noise. I'm sure Argyle would have barked or woken you up. So at the very least, the fact that you can pick up a dog without alarm, without the dog being alarmed, maneuver the dog around and sit down somewhere else with it and be,
engaging
with the dog. That's fascinating.
Yeah, it was her and not Tartan, which was really weird.
That's telling.
Yeah, I know, right? And Tartan probably would have been even calmer about it. Even if I did something really bizarre, he probably wouldn't have alarmed or alerted anyone. Argyle, I'm very surprised she cooperated with that. I'm very shocked she didn't kick me in the neck or something and been like, I was asleep, like, leave me alone,
She is very sassy.
She's very sassy. A silky terrier, but, well, thank you, Michael, for this lovely discussion of your childhood problems,
and
I guess.
Trauma.
Yeah, trauma.
That's great.
Thank you for sharing your
trauma. That's how we're bonding through trauma.
Yes. But this turned from like a conversation that I thought was going to go really different to a whole new topic.
Well, we're just going to have to find another sleep paralysis person to get in there.
Maybe we'll have Kiwan. I don't know if Kiwan will want to talk about his sleep paralysis, but maybe one day.
We'll keep it very clinical.
Yes, very clinical. Yes. But yeah, definitely. It was very interesting to talk about astral projection since we have never talked about that.
Surprisingly. Yeah. I mean, that is a key component in a lot, especially possession stories. When people talk about possession, a lot of times the person who was possessed will talk about watching from the outside, basically being forced out of the body or compressed into a dark place that they couldn't quite access. So I often think of like the moment you first hear astral projection and dark shadowy figures, like, oh, really?
Tell me more.
Tell me more. Shall I call the priest?
Right? Seriously. But awesome. So if you guys have any sleep paralysis stories that you'd like to share with us, you're more than welcome to send those our way. If you don't already follow us on TikTok, go follow us over at the Savannah Underground, and then on Instagram at the Most Haunted City on Earth. We have lots of fun merch on Haunted City Podcast. That's our website. And if you are a para junkie, you have a secret store coming to you soon. So lots of fun stuff coming around. But with that, y'all, thank you so much for watching. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And stay spooky, y'all.